Good morning. Rise in freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. It's Tuesday, the 21st. It's May. Man, this month is just flying by. This year is flying by. Anybody else noticing? Soon enough, I'm going to be a dad. A couple months from now. And I can't wait. Little baby Hazel, man. Every time I turn around, I see my wife's belly like that movie Alien with this thing moving around inside of it. It's getting pretty excited. I can't wait to be a dad. And, I don't know if Steffi cares if I say things like that on the air.
How dare you?
Glad to have all of our friends joining us live this morning here on the Wake Up America show. And Brandon Meyer, it's nice to see you again, bud. I don't know if we've seen you in a while. He was asking what 80s cop buddy rookie movie was the opening intro from. Let me get that for you here. It was... Oh, it's like Laser Town or something like that. It was something ridiculous. Let's see. Oh, you know what I can do? I can just go to the thing here. Find that for you. Yeah. Oh, Laserhawk, King of the Streets. There you go. Laserhawk with a Z. Laserhawk, King of the Streets. What's up, Bruce Burtwhistle? Nice to see you, brother. Blazer 586, Native American Pride Worldwide. Yes, we're going to be talking about that today. Is the United States sitting on stolen land? A group of Native Americans went to visit Mt Rushmore and took a picture of themselves flipping off George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Teddy Roosevelt, and Abraham Lincoln. I was not offended at them flipping off Teddy Roosevelt because I'm not a progressive Republican, but gosh darn it, when you flip off George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, we've got beef. Welcome to the Wake Up America show. We're going to speak this morning to a member of the First Nations tribe for his second appearance here on the Wake Up America show. He's been with us before. His name's Anthony Chavez. I know that the ladies were freaking out last time that are here because they were like, oh, he's so hot, dude. Anthony, shut up. Ladies, calm down. It's too early for that yet. Anthony Chavez will be joining us this morning at 7:30 a.m. to give his take on those Native Americans flipping off the Mount Rushmore carvings. So we'll talk to Anthony Chavez this morning at 7:30 a.m. And I know, ladies, you'll be excited about that. At 8 o'clock this morning, we're going to speak to Camellia Peterson. I love talking to CJ. She's our Tuesday, Thursday regular, and she's going to join us this morning to talk about this weird story about this pastor who his wife self-deleted, and then he was out on a date a few days later. There's this video of him after she died where he's in his front lawn, like throwing this weird temper tantrum kind of stuff. It's just the strangest story, and Camellia is going to fill us in on all the details. If we have time, I have another story. It's this video of this young lady, 29 years old, who's filming a TikTok in her car, extremely depressed, very upset that she's 29 years old and she still can't find a man. She's struggling to find herself an appropriate partner. And when I sent the video over to Camellia this morning to take a look at to see if she was interested in it, Camellia actually said that the video almost made her cry. She was so upset for the girl who could not find at 29 years old a suitable life partner. And if we have time, we'll talk about that. At 8:30 a.m. Central today, I'm looking forward to talking to Devin Erickson. He's been on the show before. He's that science fiction author, wrote that book that's up for the prize, the Libertarian Futurist Society's Prometheus Award for the best novel. Well, Devin Erickson wrote this really interesting tweet, basically an article to almost 2 pages long, reacting to this former Kansas City Chiefs cheerleader who felt like she needed to take the Kansas City Chiefs player Harrison Butker to task over his comments that he made at his Catholic commencement speech, Catholic College St. Benedictine commencement speech, where he said that the most rewarding thing that a woman will do in her life, besides her career, not instead of her career, but besides her career, will be the most rewarding thing will be to be a wife and a mother, which, if we don't have moms, we don't have a human race. So How can we not say that he's right? How is having kids not going to be the most important thing that you do? Like keeping our DNA, keeping our genes going throughout history, honoring our ancestors by having children. How will that not be the most important thing that you do to bring life into this world? I mean, I'm not even a religious person. I'm not Catholic. I'm not Christian. I'm not Muslim. I'm not Jewish. I am completely agnostic, right? I look at all religions almost as the same to some extent, right? The supernatural claims, at least. But the moral claims, of course, I don't see as all the same. And I see what Harrison Butker said for the most part to be pretty non-controversial. But Austin is a misogynist, is he not? Misogyny. Misogyny. Um, and we are going to talk to Devin Erickson about this. It's the Kansas City Chiefs cheerleader. She posted the story. She's like an HR lady. She thinks she's going to take Devin Erickson to task. She's obviously past her prime. She's no longer a Kansas City Chiefs cheerleader. So she's butthurt because she's not getting the attention that she used to get. And so now she is lashing out at the world and society. Cecilia, my love, she says these clapbacks from angry people at Butker are not very good. Their memes are pretty bad too. Exactly. Thank you, Cecilia. Brandon Meyer calls it more manufactured fake outrage. It's just attention whoring, dude. It's just they're bored. They ain't got nobody in their life to love them. It's like that lady that I was talking about who can't find no man. They got nobody to love them. Nobody loved them when they were kids. They didn't get enough attention, or they got too much attention. Right? They're bored. They're an affluent white liberal female sitting around not doing anything. They don't have anybody. I can't say what I wanted to say right now because it's a morning show. Austin, just kind of like take it easy. You've got to keep the evil inside. The things that you want to say. And tell you what, I'll just bring the guest on and let them say the things that I want to say. What do you say? If you are a regular guest of the Wake Up America show, can I ask you a question? Have you hit that like button yet? If not, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with me? Why can't I find a viewer who loves me enough to hit the like button? Maybe if you had a family that loved you, you would click that like button. And if you did click that like button already, God bless you. God bless you.
Do not come. Do not come.
Oh,
I'm going to come.
yeah. Oh, that's the best part of that whole video, of that clip right there. It's not the do not come, I'm gonna come. It's the part at the end where Trump goes, oh. The Wake Up America show brought to you in part by viewers and listeners just like you. Don't forget to visit the Grift Shop today at apforlibertyshop.com. I've got a brand new product that I produced last night, the American flag swim trunks for the discerning gentleman with excellent taste. Make sure today that you get those purchases in at AP for Liberty Shop today, because of course what happens when we raise $60 by the end of the show, you get to see today's bonus content. Check out this Chad, American Chad's U.S. flag swim trunks, high quality swim trunks this summer to show your solidarity with the patriotic frat boys. Head on over to apforlibertyshop.com. If we sell at least $60 worth of merch today, or we raise $60 in Rumble Rants, you get to see today's example of another society that had libertarian principles. And it's another one that I'm really excited to share with you. Yesterday, we talked a little bit about the Chicago boys and the experiment with free market economics in Chile, obviously under the regime of Augusto Pinochet. So today is a brand new 5-minute mini documentary for you guys to learn a little bit more about another example from history when libertarian principles have tried. So my recommendation, head over to apforlibertyshop.com, grab yourself a pair of American flag shorts, and while you're there, a box of Founding Flavors coffee. What say you? Yes. There we go. What a time to jump into the stream, says Blue Trike. Nice to see you, brother. Welcome, Joni Rankin. Nice to see everybody. Love seeing all of our regular guests and friends joining the Wake Up America show. Make sure the price of admission, click that like button as you enter. One listener just texting into the show at 573-319-1586. I think it's my buddy Will Run Riot. You got to make sure I don't dox him real quick. Let me just go ahead and pull it up because it looks like he's smoking a couple of brisket this morning. Oh my God. How are you going to show me that and not give me some, Will?
God! No! God, please, no! No!
Look at these delicious briskets. Oh my God. Look at those. Wow, are those wrapped in bacon? Man, I got a smoker, Will. I could use some tips. If you wouldn't mind, text me your recipe for brisket. I've got one of those electric smokers in my backyard and haven't used it yet since spring started. So I need to get me a big old brisket. Make one for me and Steffi. You know the Jews, they love them some briskets because they can't eat the porks. Oh, you've got another another picture of one here. Hold on one second. I don't want to post your number. There we go. Look at that delicious brisket. There you go. Look at that delicious brisket. That's a nice side of beef there, Will. Thanks for sharing that with us. You can send text messages to the show at 573-319-1586. Again, the text lines are open, and people text me anytime, not even just when the stream is live like it is right now. But if you're listening to the audio version later and there's something that you enjoyed about the show, you can text us at 573-319-1586. Again, the text lines are open at 573-319-1586. All right, well, let's check in on our commander-in-chief. What say you? How's Joe Biden doing these days?
And when I was vice president, things were kind of bad during the pandemic. And what happened was, Barack said to me, go to Detroit and help fix it. Well, poor mayor, he spent more time with me than he ever thought he was going to have to. God love you. And
pause for just a moment. If you just were kind of like passively listening to what he said right there, think about it for a moment. When he was vice president, things were kind of bad during the pandemic.
And when I was vice president, things were kind of bad during the pandemic. And what happened was, Barack said to me, go to...
But what? When I was vice president? I don't think you were vice president during the pandemic, Mr. Biden. I'm sorry, but... Yeah, I don't think he's all there these days. Did you see his speech, his commencement speech the other day, telling black graduates that they're going to be hunted in the streets?
We're going to put you all back in chains.
Take a listen to this.
It's natural to wonder if democracy you hear about actually works for you. What is democracy? If black men are being killed in the street, what is democracy? Betrayal of broken promises still leave black communities behind. What is democracy? You have to be 10 times better than anyone else to get a fair shot. And most of all, what does it mean, as we've heard before, to be a black man who loves his country, even if it doesn't love him back in equal measure?
Yeah, even Bill Maher wasn't buying that when he appeared on Greg Gutfeld's show yesterday to promote his new book.
Do you think there is a purpose to him being so stark and bleak?
I think it's not helpful.
Yeah.
First of all, it's anachronistic. I mean, that speech would have made sense some years ago. I think we should acknowledge that racism still persists, and we should always be making remedial remedies for it. But we're not in the past. I always keep saying, let's live in the year we're living in. We're not living in the year where you have to be 10 times better to succeed if you're a person of color. And in some instances, it's an advantage.
Yeah.
In some places, it's not an advantage. But we're not living in that world that he's talking about. And I don't think that helps anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, that's another reason why I think Bill Maher is turning more to the right, because that kind of rhetoric is not allowable on the left these days. Joe Biden is terrified of losing the black vote this fall, so he's taking some steps, not just with his racist speeches at historically black colleges, but some actual policy steps to ensure that he doesn't lose the black man's vote.
So the ban blame election year politics for the delay. The plan requires final approval from the White House. And political analysts say the Biden administration's concerned it could hurt turnout among black voters, who are by far the biggest consumers of menthol-flavored cigarettes. Durham health advocate Del Monte Jefferson says black leaders like the Reverend Al Sharpton are working with the tobacco industry.
They are doing this because money comes into their pockets from the industry. So they are simply a mouthpiece for the industry on this issue.
For the 10th year in a row, faith leaders will celebrate No Menthol Sunday this week. For the ban, blame election.
Joe Biden, so he wants to ban menthol cigarettes because he is authoritarian fascist. But then when it comes to getting elected, he doesn't want to anger the black men in his base more than they are already angered. And so many of them in poll after poll are showing that they are ditching the Democratic Party. So he's backing off his ban of menthol cigarettes. Too good to be true. Well, I see people in the chat are already speculating about Biden's mental health. So maybe in this other speech where he was talking about the crisis between Israel and Gaza happening in the Middle East at the moment, maybe he sounds a little more lucid
My
there.
administration is working around the clock to free the remaining hostages, just as we have freed hostages already. And here with us today is Hirsch Goldberg Poland, and it's still, he is not here with us, but he's still being held by Hamas.
So wait, is he here with us or is he not here with us? What is he saying? Joe Biden acknowledges a U.S. hostage. He corrects himself. The hostage isn't in the crowd. He's still being held by Hamas, but it was really difficult to tell what he's saying there.
My administration is working around the clock to free the remaining hostages, just as we have freed hostages already. And here with us today is Hirsch Goldberg Poland, and it's still, he is not here with us, but he's still being held by Hamas.
Yikes. How is this guy going to get through a debate? They are going to drug him. I think that Donald Trump is right to demand a drug test from Joe Biden before he goes on the debate stage. Obviously, that's not going to happen. But I think it's true that the reason why Joe Biden is asking for debates is because he knows that he is losing in key battleground states. The president is behind Donald Trump. And that is why there is this push, this insistence by debates. The person who is asking for debates is the person who is behind in the polls. What do you guys think? Let's hear from you. Send me a text at 573-319-1586. Is the United States living on stolen land? This post went viral the other day showing Native Americans visiting the Mt Rushmore monument in Dakota, saying, F the USA. It's all stolen land. And you can see here, they flipping the bird there to the monuments, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Teddy Roosevelt, and Abraham Lincoln. I think I know a few libertarians who might join them in such, not because of the stolen land question, but of course because of the hatred for Abraham Lincoln. Stolen land, stolen land. We're going to speak to a member of the First Nations tribe. Anthony Chavez will be joining us here in about 10 minutes. But I like this clip from a film with a debate between a Native American and an American on the question of stolen land, which might be a dramatization of the conflict between the white man and the native tribes. But for many of the points that are made here are perfectly legitimate. Take a listen to this.
Sitting Bull requested this council. We await his words.
Take your soldiers out of here. They scare the game away.
Very well, sir. Tell me then, how far away should I take my men?
You must take them out of our lands.
What precisely are your lands?
These are the lands where my people lived before you whites first came.
I don't understand. We whites were not your first enemies. Why don't you demand back the land in Minnesota where the Chippewa and others forced you from years before?
The Black Hills are sacred land given to my people by Wakantonka.
Not very convenient to cloak your claims in spiritualism. And what would you say to the Mormons and others who believe that their God has given to them Indian lands in the West?
I would say they should listen to Wakantonka.
No matter what your legends say, you didn't sprout from the plains like the spring grasses. and you didn't coalesce out of the ether. You came out of the Minnesota woodlands, armed to the teeth, and set upon your fellow man. You massacred the Kiowa, the Omaha, the Ponca, the Oto, and the Pawnee without mercy. And yet you claim the Black Hills as a private preserve bequeathed to you by the Great Spirit.
And who gave us the guns and powder to kill our enemies? And who traded weapons to the Chippewa and others who drove us from our home?
Chief Sitting Bull, the proposition that you were a peaceable people before the appearance of the white man is the most fanciful legend of all. You were killing each other for hundreds of moons before the first white stepped foot on this continent. You conquered those tribes, lusting for their game and their lands, just as we have now conquered you for no less noble a cause.
This is your story of my people.
This is the truth, not legend.
Boy, damn, that's the truth, not legend. Stolen land. Welcome to the real world. I'm curious your take on this story. Send us a text at 573-319-1586. You can let us know where you stand on this one. The Cheyenne, the Crow, the Kiowa, and the Arapaho stole it from the Arikara and the Sioux. From Minnesota, stole it from the Cheyenne, the Crow, the Kiowa, and the Arapaho. The Lakota Sioux were the colonizers until the Anglos arrived, according to Wind Talker. He's a Native American linguistic anthropologist specializing in Native American languages. He is a PhD in linguistics and anthropology and posted that tweet yesterday in response to this. We're going to speak in just a few minutes to our friend Anthony Chavez of the First Nations this morning with his thoughts on that. I'd love to hear yours, though. Again, see that text line down at the bottom of the show. Make sure that you're using that not sparingly. Use it liberally, but not in a bad liberal way. You know what I'm saying? Okay, well, we are $0 towards our $60 goal to fundraise for today's mini documentary. If we do not raise $60 by the end of the show, today's mini documentary goes away forever, and I don't think anybody wants to see that.
No, God! No!
I don't think anybody wants to see. We have an unbroken streak of 2 months of bonus content that we have unlocked every single day. Let's keep it going. What do you say, guys? Get those Rumble rants in. You can also do a super chat if you're over on YouTube, but the best way to do it, in my opinion, is to head over to apforlibertyshop.com and get yourself something real nice. Grab a box of Founding Flavors coffee or our brand new patriotic American Chad's American flag swim trunks. When we get back, let's hear from Anthony Chavez about the United States stolen land when we get back on the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com. Be right back.
Cantina crew, this is Elon Musk, the CEO of Twitter, and I just want to say thank you for watching the Wake Up America show. I've decided that Austin Peterson will be the new CEO of Twitter.com, effective immediately. First thing to do, though, is I've got to go and blast off into space.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
The conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
What would happen if I had to pick up the phone, call 911 for one of my family members or one of my neighbors? What would I do if no one was on the other end to respond? What if there was no 911? So you can be a part of the solution.
Anybody can be a firefighter. Male, female, younger, older.
We have school teachers. We have leaders in business.
Is me, you, anyone that wants to be. There is no typical firefighter.
Do you hate the deep state? Do you reject the Antichrist in all his ways? Do you believe that aliens controlled LBJ to assassinate John F. Kennedy? Did you know that the shot can put chemicals in you that will make you more sensitive to 5G? Do you love America? Do you want more freedom? Do you like smoking hot red-headed libertarians? Then the AP for Liberty shop is for you! Check out all the awesome new merch and have a happy new year! Fight the deep state, reject the Antichrist! Visit AP for Liberty shop and get your patriotic merchandise now, or the deep state wins!
Welcome back to the Wake Up America show. I'm Austin Peterson. Glad and thankful to have you here. Let's rise and freedom. Click that like button if you're enjoying the content that you're watching today. If it's your first time watching the Wake Up America show, we'd love to have you be a regular guest. The show stream is every Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. So it's a 2-hour Wake Up America show. It's a great way to start your day. Make some friends. If you're joining us live over on rumble.com, drop a comment, introduce yourself. We'd love to make your acquaintance and have you be a member of the regular guest lineup here on the Wake Up America show. All right, well, let's get to the topic at hand. Is the United States sitting on stolen land? A group of Native Americans who visited Mt Rushmore flipped the bird to the monument, and that photograph went viral, sparking the age-old debate of who owns the land? Can you own the land? I decided that I didn't want to have this conversation by myself. I'd like to talk to somebody who's an expert on such things. Anthony Chavez, he's been a guest on the show before. He's a member of the First Nations tribe and an American patriot, joining us live. It's bright and early where Anthony is today, so it's a little dark over there. Good morning, Anthony. How are you doing today, sir?
Good morning from the Mile High City. The sun's coming up, so hopefully the lighting gets better.
Anthony, thanks for getting up so early and joining us to talk about this topic. And it is a divisive topic, and it's one that I don't want to. I didn't want to just, sort of like be, chauvinistic and beat my chest about my, heritage and ancestors being more powerful and conquering. I wanted to have somebody in there who could sort of check my impulses here. And that's why I decided to invite you on, because I wonder what your reaction was to this group of Native Americans going to Mount Rushmore and flipping at the bird, showing such disrespect at America's national monument. I mean, you consider yourself to be a patriot. How do you react to something like that?
Well, I think that the important thing to remember when having these conversations is that the lens of distrust, I think that a lot of people are using when it comes to the history and things like that we were taught, also deserves that same lens. This specific monument, I think I sent you something in a message. It actually represented the six grandfathers, which were the four directions, above and below. And so this specific area has meaning, and this specific rock face that was used for that had previous meaning and value, um, to our culture. Um, so it is a divisive topic, and I'm glad that you brought me on because I think it's important to highlight um, some of the more notable things that should be celebrated, from Native culture and not just Navajo code talkers. There's other history that we can celebrate, like the Constitution or the Bill of Rights, coming from the Iroquois Confederacy. A lot of the time was spent by Ben Franklin and George Washington, with these tribes, trying to understand how this three-branch structure works. And anyone who digs into the Federalist Papers can tell you there is a huge swath of sections where the learning and the coexisting, the borrowing, took place. And so it's important to remember correct history, especially when it comes to indigenous topics. My son had something interesting he brought up twice. It was a person who had a presentation on Thanksgiving. Well, we know the history of Thanksgiving, and it wasn't a celebration together. It was a celebration of a massacre in the Pequot tribe, and you know that sort of correction of history. And my son was not allowed to ask a question because it couldn't be negative, right? So we're still teaching this nostalgic idea of a United States, and history is written by the victor, surely, but I don't want to give a false sense of pride to people, where I think you should have a true sense of pride in, like, okay, these aren't Indian savages. They actually created the three-branch structure that we borrowed and use today.
Okay. Well, I want to be respectful to the Native American tribes of their history and their culture because I know that it is endemic to the history of the United States. And I can acknowledge on one hand that there were atrocities that were committed by my ancestors, who I can trace back to the earliest foundations of the United States, while also suggesting that those atrocities might have been equaled or perhaps even surpassed by the longer history of Native American wars and tribes that occurred before the white man ever came to the United States. And I guess where I'm really struggling with this, Anthony, and I wonder if you can help me think about this, is when I see the leftist woke, privileged leftists, the pink-haired communists, the 500-pound fat acceptance movement, the gays for Gaza and the Antifa Marxists who burn down cities, when I see them tearing down statues here in the United States and destroying our cultural objects, I see this very much as cultural vandalism to a large effect. Now, you might accuse those who created Mount Rushmore of the same thing to a certain extent. But that doesn't mean that we then are justified by going around and tearing down monuments or tearing these down. How do we, on one hand, say we want to be respectful of a native culture and its tribes, while also, not necessarily, while not giving up the legacy of the pride of my own foundations, of my own ancestors, who I don't consider to be thieves who stole this land. Conquerors, yes. Thieves, no. So how do we sort of square that circle, looking at it, the context of the left who want to destroy these monuments and their cultural vandalism, while also maintaining my own traditions and respect for my own ancestors and the courage that they displayed in conquering this land?
Sure. And I think what's hard to realize when you zoom out, you can see that these movements in the past, they always get co-opted. You know, Occupy Wall Street, the things that happen in the campuses. I mean, they just get really, really, I mean, right away they get co-opted, right? And so that's kind of what has happened with that. In Indian country, there is a leftist leaning sort of militant, almost, if you will, sort of, you know, idea. But then at the same time, we're also facing a little known thing called indigenous erasure. I think last time we were on the show, we were talking about protecting some of the imagery. You know, the Washington Redskins are possibly going to go back to being the Washington Warriors and retaining, you know, Blackie Wetzel's the bust that was used for that symbol, right? So on two fronts, we're trying to fight indigenous erasure, but then we're also trying to ward off the wokeism that co-ops these movements. It's important to remember that these treaties, the treaties that were signed by the United States are over 300. And the reason why is because as expansion moved west, they had to make new treaties with these other tribes because they didn't exist. You know, it was only for this specific tribe. Because you don't conquer a people you sign treaties with. And it's in the Constitution, you know, that the laws of the land and the treaties thereof, and the judges being bound by those, that was included in these treaties. So the things that took place with like the blankets and the reservations and the displacement of a lot of these tribes, it falls under to a category of theft in a way that it was a broken promise. We promised to provide food and land, right? So you could hunt, and starvation is a means of control, has always been, right? Look at what happened during the pandemic, and more recently in the last couple of years. The price that people are paying at the gas station and the grocery store is meant to demoralize. Food as a control is meant that way. So you know, killing all the buffalo, and taking away that food source, keeping rations when they were promised, if you move here, we'll give you these rations. They didn't get the rations. And there's plenty of stories throughout, you know, North America, Canada, United States. You know, the Indian agents were withholding these things out of control. So it's important to remember that the idea that this country was stolen kind of rings true, because the money people, the banksters, right? We're not talking about your ancestors. We're talking about the banksters who saw the opportunity for expansion west and used that to try and, you know, pave a railroad from East Coast to West Coast and turn everyone into farmers, right? They wanted to produce, they wanted us to produce goods for them.
Anthony, I totally agree. I mean, you're an American patriot. We've had a conversation before. I know where you stand on the issues of republicanism. We stand in solidarity against the central banks, which are impoverishing Americans and, you know, turning us upside down for our savings, making it impossible to save money in this country, making it impossible to buy food and gas. And on those issues, we agree. I guess where I'm finding this challenge in you know, looking at history, and when we talk about, you know, stolen land or this controversy, right, to consider that the Native American tribes that survive today, I mean, they were not the original tribes that came to what is now the United States, because they conquered the tribes that had come initially from across the Bering Strait. I mean, there really is do you agree with me that there really is no such thing as quote unquote stolen land in the sense that the left is trying to advocate for? Because if that were the truth, then every piece of land that is settled now is stolen land, because there isn't a single populated piece of dirt on this planet that wasn't conquered by some tribe before that and then another tribe before that. I mean, you know, again, the natives had been at war with one another for what, 1,000 years before the white man ever stepped foot on this one. So I mean, it's a fallacious claim to argue that land is stolen by this group or another. Conquered, yes, but stolen, I mean, we're all living on stolen land. It's kind of like the conflict between Israel and Palestine to some extent, right? At some level, you have to say whether one treaty was broken or some treaty was promised and then broken. I mean, we can't relitigate the past to some extent. That's what the left wants us to do. At some point, we have to just say the world is what it is and move on, right?
Yeah, and I agree with parts of that. And all facts are really stubborn things. The Bering Strait and the land bridge has been debunked like maybe 10 years ago. And the reason why I mentioned, what my son is actually experiencing, this nostalgic idea that we teach in schools is still being taught. And so scalping, for instance, come to find out, maybe it was a European thing that we took. The Clovis people, the Kennewick man, the bones that were found in Kennewick, Washington, predate the Clovis civilization predates Aztec and Mayan here in the New Mexico, Oklahoma area, right? So from a historical sense, again, it's this distrust of lens that we have, right? We have got to apply this to this Native American history, because it was a lot of people say, well, you guys scalped and killed each other, and so therefore, well, the reason why they had to import black slaves is because they couldn't make Indians slaves because we would war them. They tried. They really tried, and it didn't work for very long because we were a warring, stubborn people.
But the Native Americans themselves did hold black slaves.
So I'm not that's possibly true, but this would be post
it's my
first
understanding.
encounter.
It's my understanding that the Trail of Tears was populated not just by the Native Americans driven out of their lands, but also by the black slaves that they took with them. You don't see that in those paintings, but many Native Americans did also team up with the Confederacy in part to maintain their chattel slaves, at least to my knowledge as such. But I mean, again, what we're really talking about here is history that is bygones by bygones. We can't apologize for the sins of our ancestors, and we can't change what our ancestors did. I also can't find myself self-flagellating for what my ancestors did to some native tribe in order to build the greatest nation that the world has ever seen. I mean, I think that you would agree with it, that the situation that the United States finds itself in is much better than a sort of mystical, spiritual, tribal, groups of people warring with one another. I mean, you consider yourself to be a patriotic American, correct?
Right.
So then,
yeah,
how do we square those circles, right? Where I want to be respectful to Native culture, but I won't deny, a pride in my own heritage and pride in my nation state.
And I think it's a delicate balance. I think people have to find that, on the one hand, we were lied to, and maybe those merciless savages who were scalping people who came across this land bridge maybe isn't so and deserves a second look. And that way, out of respect, you gain that understanding of why the Black Hills specifically as a cosmology, right? As an origin story, right? This goes back to a great race that took place around the Black Hills. These monuments, they have stories. It's Bear's Lodge. You guys call it Devil's Tower up in Wyoming, right? There's a cosmology connected to that. So it's almost like the Washington Monument, right? It would be like going into a very sacred, known, statue, right? And then just taking it down and putting up your own, right? It was almost purposeful, right? As like putting our flag in the ground. Right. And so, and no, we're not going to undo those things. You're right, Austin. We're not, you and me, we're not going to undo those things. What we can do to move together, arm in arm together to move forward, is to look at the correct history and understand from that perspective. Okay, yes, these things weren't honored. A lot of the things that we were told about scalping and the warring each other, well, it was for food sources because they were pushed out, but it's used as, well, they did it to themselves. And everyone was slaves. So it's everyone did this. Everyone did. We all, well, actually, I think it deserves a second look because, like I said, facts are stubborn things. This country, right? We couldn't pray and go to sweat lodge until 1978, but yet we were allowed to go code talk in World War II to save this country, right? But again, there's so many more things to celebrate and be proud of this culture that is welcoming, that isn't divisive, like the land bridge. Because like I said, the Clovis people and the ground penetrating radar, the technology that we have today is slowly, in the age of information, picking apart these things of this nostalgic idea. They ate eels at the first Thanksgiving. That's what they had to eat. It wasn't a feast. It wasn't. It was a celebration of a massacre, and they still teach it in schools today. And it's sad because we're doing our children a disservice by feeding them this. And he brought it up, and he's like Martin Luther King, and it's like, I get it, son, because they don't teach Billy Mills. Billy Mills was an Olympic athlete, a Native American. Same with Jim Thorpe, but they only teach you about Jesse Owens. Right? You don't get that. It doesn't stick with you, right? Those things don't stick with you. And so I think it's important to highlight things that everyone can celebrate and not look at as, well, we're justified by doing this because they did it to each other, or we're justified by this.
I think that's almost impossible to do, to find something that everyone can celebrate, because
Sure.
we can't even get people to celebrate the 4th of July, which is, I mean, an entirely secular holiday that's devoted only to the foundation of the United States, which we all live in. Christmas, not everybody's going to celebrate that, obviously. I mean, what kind of a holiday could there possibly be? I mean, Columbus Day, that's definitely
Cinco
out,
de
right?
Mayo.
Right, Cinco de Mayo.
Cinco de Mayo is the only one. Yeah.
And the Mexicans don't even really celebrate that one. So
no, they don't.
I mean,
it's a different day.
It's an unbelievable challenge. And Anthony, I appreciate you approaching these things with intellectual honesty. I would be curious to have longer, drawn out discussions with you about these things.
Yeah.
Please do send me that information about the Bering land bridge theory that you have unearthed. Just a cursory glance at the Encyclopedia Britannica, which I don't necessarily always believe, says that scalping dates back to the 13th century, which puts it at around 1200 here in the United States, although the earliest recorded scalping is listed here as in ancient Greece. So it's not as if this is some like unique practice that occurred here in the North American territories. Anthony, I want to give you a chance to offer any plugs, or if you have any last things that you'd like to say, or talk about your podcast so that our listeners can find you online. I'd like you to give you the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, sure. So if you guys want to go, if you just regular Google search Kennewick Man, it'll bring up what came through the testing that was done on that skeleton, and then the Clovis civilization. That'll direct you to everything that you need to know. Skin in the Game is kind of on a hiatus now over the summer because as a single full-time father, it's summertime, and my son is definitely the priority here in my home. And but look for more Skin in the Game episodes leading up to the election. We're still going to focus on politics and try and boost some of these politicians. I will be speaking this Saturday at a campaign launch for CD District 1. Valdemar Archuleta is trying to unseat Diana DeGette after 30 years. It's time for a fresh face in Colorado representation. And I've interviewed him a couple times. So say hello to your wife, Steffi. Thanks for having me on, Austin. And yeah, it deserves a little bit more time and attention, but I think at the end of the day, we can come to a meeting point where, like I said, arm in arm together, we can walk forward and bring this nation back to a status of being proud together without the divisiveness. But thanks again for having me on. I appreciate it, Austin.
Anthony, thank you for being so generous with your time and forthright with your views. You are an American patriot. You can be seen over on x.com at Anthony W. Chavez. I highly recommend our listeners go and give you a follow over there. Thanks again for your time and your patriotism. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Austin.
Thank you. What did you all think of Anthony Chavez? Round of applause. Maybe click like on the stream. Do you get conversations like these on any other podcasts? Let's be honest. I don't think that you do. No.
Oh, God!
You don't get conversations like that on other talk shows. Certainly not morning talk shows. It's the Wake Up America show. It's the only place where you're hearing conversations like that between two gentlemen having a debate about the old ancient war between our two cultures. You know what I'm saying? Knowing that, make sure that you click that like button. And if it's your first time here and you're saying, wow, that's good stuff, I'd love to hear more of it, make sure that you also click that follow button on the stream so that you can come back and join us for the regular schedule, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. Sarah for Liberty says, Patriotic Native, I'm there. She wants to hear more from Anthony. Thank you for your time. Well, thank you for your time, Sarah. We're glad to have you join us today. The United States is the best nation in the history of the world because of all the people in the melting pot, says Frickety. Welcome, Frickety. Nice to see you. Burr's mommy joining us live this morning. She took great umbrage with what was being said. He's basically referring to my 9th great-grandfather as being a murderer. So, yeah, I'm going to look at it. I try not to take it out of the safe. I don't know what you're talking about there. Sorry that. They made a movie about Jim Thorpe, says In Jim. Oh, really? What was the movie? Zed the Head says leftoids will accept any identity other than American. Interesting. No Native Americans. That is globalist talk again, says Sputnik. All red man crossed the Bering Straits. Well, that's very unique. That's a very interesting claim to talk about someone's name with someone who has the name of a Soviet satellite there. Sputnik, what are you, a commie?
How dare you?
Just teasing. I'm glad to have everybody here. It's good to have diversity of opinions. The Wake Up America show is a melting pot of ideas. And one of the ideas that I love to espouse are the ideas of economic freedom and personal liberty, which will be, of course, in the documentary that you're about to watch, because Andy Opperman bought himself a pair of American flag shorts. That, coupled with Cecilia and her $10 donation over at rumble.com, puts us over the top for today's mini documentary. Yes. Andy Opperman, come on down. He bought a pair of my newly designed American flag shorts that I just designed last night. And Andy Opperman can get those by coming over to my house. No, just kidding, Andy. We're going to send those directly to you. You can get your patriotic U.S. flag swim trunks, American Chads, U.S. flag swim trunks. They go all the way from 2XS to 2 extra small to 6XL. Although, let's be honest, guys, are you really? Is anybody out there a 2XS? I don't think so. Get your patriotic flag shorts. It's summer, guys. It's time for us to rock out with our Glocks out. The Wake Up America show brought to you in part by AP4LibertyShop.com. Head on over to AP4LibertyShop.com, guys. Get yourself some. We're going to talk to Camellia about this pastor whose wife self-deleted, and then he's on a date 3 days later. All kinds of weird public antics. All that and more. Don't forget. And then at 8:30, former Kansas City Chiefs cheerleader going after Harrison Butker. She needs attention. Well, we'll give it to her. Just not the kind she wants on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Wake Up America show, we continue our theme of looking at times libertarianism has been tried throughout history. Let's consider the case of Godord, the medieval Icelandic government. Medieval Icelandic government, known as Viking Iceland, was often seen as a nascent democracy. It was a free state without centralized authority, kings, or a tiered class system, promoting a community-driven approach to governance. At the heart of this system was the Althing, an assembly where laws were made and disputes settled. This gathering was foundational to Icelandic governance and set it apart from other European systems. The settlers from Scandinavia introduced a unique political structure, avoiding the concentration of power and allowing for the mobility of allegiances among leaders, known as chieftains. Chieftains, or Godar, owed their status to their followers and their ability to mediate disputes, not to territorial control. They played a crucial role, but were not rulers in the traditional sense. The economy was basic, focused on self-sufficient farming, without the influence of towns or trade centers that might encourage a feudal system. Social structure was horizontal. Even farmers could become chieftains if they gained enough respect and followers, emphasizing the fluidity and equality within the society. Legal disputes and community decisions were often handled at local assemblies, which could escalate to the Althing if needed, showing the sophistication of their legal framework. Despite its egalitarian underpinnings, the society was not without its issues. Disputes could turn violent, reflecting the sagas that depict feuds and conflicts, illustrating the challenges of a stateless society. Snorri Sturluson, a 13th century Icelandic historian, suggested that tyranny in Norway led to the settlement of Iceland. Settlers sought to escape the overreach of kings like Harald Fairhair, who imposed harsh taxes and authority. The settlers established a society where power was not inherited or centralized but shared among leaders who were judged by their merits and the consent of the governed. The Althing was not just a legislative body but a symbol of collective governance. It was held at Thingvellir, a physical and symbolic center of Icelandic law and culture. Leadership roles like the law speaker were about service, not power, as these individuals recited laws from memory but wielded no executive power. Judicial reforms in the 960s introduced the quarter courts in a more structured legal system, although fundamentally the society remained decentralized. Courts were open to public participation, emphasizing a transparent and community-focused legal process. However, achieving justice often depended on the ability to gather support. The system encouraged negotiations and settlements over conflict, with provisions for arbitration and compromise, reflecting a community-oriented approach to law and order. By avoiding the pitfalls of feudalism and the accumulation of power, Iceland's medieval society prioritized the welfare and autonomy of its people over the ambitions of its leaders. This unique form of governance, characterized by its emphasis on communal values and shared authority, serves as a historical example of alternative political structures. The legacy of Viking Iceland continues to intrigue historians and political theorists, offering insights into the functioning of a society built on consensus and mutual respect, rather than hierarchy and domination.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Hope you all enjoyed the conversation with Anthony Chavez this morning. 3 back-to-back incredible guests right here on the Wake Up America show. Where else are you going to get these kinds of conversations? Well, my regular Tuesday and Thursday guest, Camelia Peterson's going to join us live in just a moment. She's backstage having a little coffee, drinking some founding flavors, we hope. We'll find out in just a second. She's going to talk to us about this next story of a pastor in South Carolina whose wife, well, self-deleted. And all of the strangeness and toxicity surrounding the relationship between this pastor and his wife have been bubbling up to the surface in the last couple of weeks. This video, which emerged, caught my attention and drew my eyes to the story of the pastor after his wife departed this veil, shall we say. This video surfaced.
Feels like there's ants on you?
The police officers.
There's no ants on you, though. It's just, maybe that's how you feel, but there's none on you.
This is the pastor laying in the grass after the event. Now, people, of course, can react in odd ways.
What kind of medicine do they have you on?
To deal with grief. And I certainly don't know how I would behave after something like this happened, but there are too many weird coincidences surrounding this story for me to leave it be. So let's talk to Camelia Peterson about it. She's joining us live right now. Good morning, CJ. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing well. Thank you.
Yeah, so JP Miller, his wife, Micah Miller, he's a pastor, and she was reportedly bipolar, at least according to him. She commits suicide, and he's having drinks with some other woman like a week later. The Daily Mail is reporting. Like, set this up. Let's start from the beginning here, Camelia. What do we know about this case?
So I first saw something about this just in passing, like, I don't know, maybe a couple of weeks ago, when they were talking about this pastor had gotten up in front of his congregation and his wife had just committed suicide. And he's like up there, like everything's normal, and just kind of casually informs them about this, but then asks them not to talk about it or ask him anything about it. And it was just very weird and bizarre. And so now looking at everything that has come out, it sounds like, he was 14 years older than she was. And so according to her, he had, and this is somewhat debated, but according to her, he had groomed her from a young age in the church. According to her, like, I don't, it's hard to say like exactly how much of that lines up with what other people say, but given his behavior, it's maybe believable. But anyway, they had been married. She was a part of the worship ministry in the church. And there, apparently a couple of years ago, they started having problems. She was accusing him of infidelity. And of course, he is saying that she's mentally unstable. He apparently, according to her, and this seems to kind of be corroborated now, was seeing, multiple other women. And there was at one point, he had her involuntarily committed, probably like a 72-hour hold. And the thing is that you can do that. You can do that without having to provide any evidence. Like if your husband or your wife, goes to law enforcement officials and says, this person is threatening to harm themselves or somebody else, they can commit you to a psychiatric ward involuntarily for a 72-hour hold while you are assessed. And so it sounds like that is what happened with her. They released her after 48 hours. In the meantime, he had come to the hospital and had taken her purse and her car keys. So she went back to the store wherever she thought she left her car, and it was not there. So there were, there were all of these things happening, and she had contacted law enforcement and had filed a suit and a restraining order. And there was a court case about that, but she was being followed. According to her, she had gone to a mechanic's shop, and other people had seen, including police officers, had seen somebody, driving by, following her, things like that too. And they found a tracking device on her car. So I don't know that she may have been having some issues. I think there's probably good reason to believe he was the impetus for a lot of those issues that she was having, because it sounds like there was a whole lot of gaslighting that was going on. And, he was in this church that he was pastoring in Myrtle Beach. There were a lot of people who knew him that called him a wolf in sheep's clothing and a charlatan, and he probably was.
So, he's seen out a week later with another woman having sushi at a restaurant, laughing, having a good time.
Right.
Like the day after she dies, he's laying out in the grass, crying, blubbering like a little baby. 5 days later, he's having the time of his life, no problem. Just snap right back up. Something's fishy here with this story,
and in that
Camelia.
span of time too, there were other things where he was leaving his number for a waitress at a bar, to call him, and exchanging all of these flirty messages. And honestly, gosh, he's just creepy, like gross, right? And I think that, for women who, if you are a secure woman who, kind of just knows what's up, I don't know, I think that you could see through that. But, that probably appeals to women who are, insecure, not sure of themselves, and looking for that kind of, validation. And I think that he was someone who could fully take advantage of that.
If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. I'm Austin Peterson. I'm speaking to Camelia Peterson. We're just friends. We're not relatives. We're talking about the case of a pastor in South Carolina, J.P. Miller, whose wife committed suicide and who was seen drinking and eating sushi a week after she died. Stories coming out about abuse and grooming. It's a massive story. There's a lot of moving parts to this,
right?
Camelia, accusations of adultery on her part, her having potentially bipolar disorder. She was confirmed to be on lithium, which suggests that she was struggling with mental health disorders. But I can imagine that if you have a husband who's committing adultery and harassing you and stepping out on you, like that's the kind of thing that might push a lot of people, men or women, to the edge to seek mental health help. I can't imagine the position that she must be in. And then there's a lot of power that pastors have, especially
Yes.
in these small town churches, that they have over their congregations to be able to sort of gaslight and, well, we'll call it what it is, bullshit their audience, using spirituality as their cover to protect themselves from the kinds of accusations that were being leveled at him.
Absolutely. And I think that that is probably one of the most important aspects to this story, is that people can look at all of these facts and say, like, well, how could she put up with that? How could she stay with that? And I don't think that they understand, that mental context and that atmosphere when you are in a church like that and you are getting attention from someone who is seen as this charismatic authority figure. And there is this very spiritual component to it. And that's why people like this pastor, when I meant my bias here, like this is probably my number one personal peeve that I just can't, like, this makes me see red, is charlatan pastors who abuse their authority like this over people and just, totally fleece them. And I like, there's just nothing that's more despicable. And for every person, like this, there are many other pastors and churches who are doing things the right way, but all it takes is people like this to make everybody else look bad. But it's also true that, it's also that kind of an environment and that position of authority is just ripe for abuse, because you are, in the church setting, women are expected to submit to authority. You don't question the pastor. Like, there are lots of those expectations that are just inherent in the atmosphere. Not every church, lots of churches. So I think that makes this kind of scenario just more ripe for things like this.
There's so many odd circumstances around this case that I see reported, like the church that he was the pastor of, Solid Rock Church, had a registered sex offender on staff as one of the assistant pastors. The adultery that was going on was happening inside the congregation. He owns the church, right? So how are you going to resign from a church that you have ownership of to some extent? This is just one of those textbook cases where, if you're the family of the woman who self-deleted, I would be launching not just civil liability trials against him, but criminal cases potentially as well. What about you?
Absolutely. And I know that they have brought in the FBI now as far as their involvement in this. I'm not sure exactly, what that means, but I know that the family is pushing for more on this. And I just keep thinking, I know people wonder, like, why would she, commit suicide over this? And the thing is imagine, all of these years being in that environment and knowing all of these things are going on, but being constantly told that, you're just imagining things, and that you feeling absolutely powerless, because your entire social circle and the people that like, this is all this is your support system. they are all, on the side of your abuser. And he had been exchanging, texts with her and her family too, I believe, messages, for a couple of years, just saying really, horrible things to them. And so it is hard to imagine too, that her family wasn't more proactive. But I know in the middle of situations like that, you don't always know what to do or feel like you have an avenue to actually do something that will have some teeth to it. And I think that's what she was attempting to do with the restraining order, but it can be pretty difficult to get a restraining order.
Okay. Well, it's an interesting case, and it's one we might revisit if there are breaking news details in this one, Camellia. I thought you would find it interesting. That's why I sent it over for us to discuss. But I have another interesting story this morning, and I was actually kind of shocked at your response to this, Camellia. Now, this is a 3-minute long video, so I won't be able to play the entire video, and you're not going to be able to hear the video, unfortunately. You did get to see it. I'm going to play about a minute of it. This is a young lady. She's 29 years old, and she's sort of being panned by people on the right. Not the B, which is is it the antecedent? Is that the correct word? To the Babylon Bee. They're the real news part of the Babylon Bee Foundation. Posted this story because she's getting ripped for being a 29-year-old girl boss on TikTok, having a public meltdown about failing to find a man. So we're just going to play this. You're going to hear silence for the next minute, Camellia, but don't worry, the audience will be able to hear it. Here we go.
Quick question. Are you fucking kidding me?
Pause. There will be some bad language. Sorry, guys. Here we go.
Like, I am so sick and tired of just everything right now. Everyone is so quick to say, stop doing this, stop thinking like this, stop telling me I'm wrong. I have literally convinced myself at this point, based on everything that everyone's telling me, my therapist, my family, my friends, that I'm just doing everything wrong. I'm healing wrong. I'm thinking wrong. I'm training wrong. I'm doing relationships wrong. Everything I do is fucking wrong. And I'm so sick of it. Stop comparing. It's not even about comparison. Like, I genuinely just want love in my life so badly. It's literally not about anyone else. It's just about me and what I want. And being fucking over the fact that I don't have it.
I, me.
Anyone else. It's just about me.
It's literally not about anyone else. It's just about me, she says, Camellia. You said that this almost made you cry. Not me. Why? She's 29 years old. She can't find no man. But she says it's literally about no one else. It's just about me. Camellia, your reaction.
Sure. And I think that the place where she comes from when she's saying that is that she's not trying to say that other people should do something or whatever. She's just like, I've done all these things, this is like, what am I doing wrong? She's done all of these things that she thinks she's doing to meet all of these expectations, the things that she's been told by society and her family and the people around her, and nothing is working. And yes, there is that, that this is all about me sort of thing. But I think that it comes from, I think, a place of desperation, and you just don't know what to do. And, honestly, when she's talking, this is not like a new sentiment to humanity, because the first thing that popped into my head when I'm listening to her is the Queen song. You're like, I just want to find somebody to love, right? That is that is common to men and women. But there are a lot of times
you're not addressing what I was inferring.
Yeah, I know. So, well, I know you're not. So I do think that, the other thing that I immediately thought of is that, she talks about doing all of these things, how that she's worked on herself. She's gone to therapy. She's done all of these things, and it hasn't helped. She's got a career. She's independent. She's successful. She's
she was lied to, Camellia.
I know she was healthy. She's in shape. She's checking all the boxes.
She's a pretty girl too, 29 years old.
But she has been set up for failure. And in how, the expectations that society has set for her, and teaching her what she can expect. Because I think that she's been so wrapped up and so focused on all of these things that, it just is, it makes it a lot more difficult than
What
it should
advice-
be. And it's
what
already
adv-
difficult.
Before I go off, Queen, what advice would you have given her?
The first advice I would give her would be to stop therapy. I think that's largely
as a husband of a therapist, I think even my therapist's wife would agree that most of the people that I listen sometimes to her training sessions where they talk about how to like be a good therapist and stuff, and about 80 to 90% of it is Marxist critical theory, that feminism, leftism, Marxism, socialism, and has very little to do with mental health, and it's much more about indoctrination into a worldview.
Well, the thing is that most people, the context of therapy now is that it's supposed to fix you. And there's no end point to it necessarily. You could be in therapy like indefinitely. And therapy, there is value in it if it is done right. And it should be like any other, medical application where there is an end point. There's a goal. And you are being taught, skills and tools to use, to be able to handle those things on your own. And so I think that, it has become detrimental because basically people are wanting a sounding board. Like,
yes, they want their own opinions said back to them in their own voice. So,
right.
So get out of therapy. Okay. What other advice? Because she wants a man, Camellia. You've been married, you've had kids, right? You've dated, right? You know a thing or two about the opposite sex, just as much at least as any woman can know. What advice would you give to her, or would you have given to her, given that she's, approaching past her prime?
Sure. I mean, I think that part of my advice to her, I think she's doing the right thing and focusing on working on herself. But I also think that she, my advice to her, honestly, would be to listen to male voices. When you're talking about in the masculinity movement, spaces like that, I know they talk about, women shouldn't, but I do think there's a lot of value to women listening to what men are saying and understanding their perspective. So
the first thing that would have to happen is that in order to listen, what do you have to do first before you listen?
Yeah, right. God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. So listen more than you speak. Be silent, woman. No, I'm just kidding.
So listen more to men about things. Sure. But when they listen, they recoil, Camellia. They recoil because of the indoctrination, unfortunately.
Sure.
Because they're trained to dislike us. Most women find most men to be ugly, and that's for biological reasons, not just indoctrination reasons. It's not nature versus nurture. There's a strong biological urge telling women, when they look at most of us guys, most of us, they don't see you don't see us as average. You see most of us as ugly, not average, ugly. So how's she going to overcome that biology? Because it used to be, Camellia, back in the day when we all lived in these small towns, you had 50 to 75 guys to choose from, and that was about it. And you found one, and you didn't think too much about the fact that he had a big schnoz, right? Or maybe he was a little, he drank a little bit too much, or all those kinds of things. You didn't have all those options. Now it appears as if you have infinite options. But when you take the female delusion calculator, we gave you that one that test, I think, once on this show.
Yeah, we did. We discovered that the pool is infinitesimally small
of men that actually meet women's standards. It's just, I do feel bad for women. I'm not going to cry watching your video when I see things like that, because many of these problems are of their own making. But the opportunities for women are much smaller than they actually perceive of what they are. So, I mean, she's in trouble, no doubt.
Sure. And when you say it's of her own making, I quibble with that a little bit, because yes, at some point you have to take responsibility, but you don't know what you don't know, right? And if this is all she's ever heard in her social circles, in her family, and, from society, like if you are not, and especially not everybody is just, by our nature, not everybody is an independent thinker to where they take initiative to go out and, lead themselves, so to speak. I think there are people who have those qualities and people who are more so followers. And I think those people are much more susceptible to, you know, all of the messages that we get from society. And so there's so much unlearning that has to happen. And, you know, for her, like the only thing that she can do, I think, is to, you know, seek out, you know, people who are with a different point of view so that she's exposed to something else, to new ideas. But something has to happen. She has to understand that she needs to do that. And I think that that's the tough part. And this may be her part. This may be the point for her, right?
This might be the wake up call. So but the problem of it, I think, is the language there. It's I, me. This is about me. And I see that a lot, Camelia.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because what are men really going to be attracted to? Well, I'll tell you, I've dated some narcissistic, self-centered, self-obsessed women in my life. And they are, you know, you go to the big cities, you live in New York and Washington, D.C., and they all think that they're Carrie Bradshaw from Sex and the City. You probably never watched that show. Good for you, right? You'd be glad that you that is one piece of pop culture that I'm glad that you missed.
Okay, good.
And they all think that they're the star from Sex and the City. And so that doesn't, when they are so self-obsessed, it doesn't leave really any room for a relationship at all. I remember many times I felt more like an accessory, right? Rather than I felt like a partner, right? And that's why those relationships never developed or blossomed into a long-term relationship like the one that I have right now, because Stephanie is the opposite of selfish. Whatever the opposite of selfish is, that's what Stephanie is. The last person that Stephanie thinks about is herself. And that is rare. That is a rare jewel. It didn't used to be that rare. My grandma was like, both of my grandmas were like that. And the women that I knew in my family that were older, my aunts, right? My cousins, and second cousins and things like that, all of the women in my household, they were the most selfless creatures you could ever imagine. They were humble. Many of them still went to college, right? Many of them, they got degrees and they perform, you know, they excelled in their field. They brought income into the homes. It wasn't like they were just barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen, right? This sort of stereotypical trad wife. But they were not so self-absorbed as to think that it's all about me, I, me, my. Something has changed. I mean, because I know that as a man, I can't have a woman and also be completely self-centered and obnoxiously narcissistic, because I'm programmed as a man to produce for more than just I have to produce more resources than I eat so that there's excess for the family, right? But like somewhere along the line, women have been, what do they call it when you go to the pet, spayed or neutered? They've been neutered of this.
For females, new or spayed.
Yeah, the spayed, right? Which one is it, spayed or neutered? So it appears as if modern women in the Western society have been spayed of their instinct to produce more than they eat. They're eating more than they produce. Am I off base here?
Well, and I think the double-edged sword of what you talked about with a relationship and is this idea culturally that we have to find somebody who completes us, that we are not complete without another person, which I think is so terrible and damaging to a relationship, because it sets these expectations and places a burden on the other person that ends up being destructive. And the thing is like, but at the same time, we do and should be attracted to people who complement us, who, their strengths are probably going to be our weaknesses. I think we look for that in other people. I think that's a positive thing. But if you go into that mindset thinking, I cannot survive without this person, the enormous burden that places on your partner is just it's just in the background. It's not like it's out there and super obvious, but it is an undercurrent that is ultimately destructive. I think we set people up for failure in that sense. But, also when women are, they've got this, I'm so independent and I don't need a man, but deep down, they really do. Like, if you really sit down and talk to women, like they want those long-term relationships. It's far more rare that they don't. And so I think that they don't know how to balance that societal expectation that's been put on them with that very instinctual feeling that they want that man to protect and care for them. And I think that they've also, in some ways, because we are in such an advanced, decadent society now, we are much less reliant on other people, just by virtue of our technology and the things that we have access to.
Until the biology kicks in, Camellia, and says,
Right.
maybe I could use a little bit of
Right.
help around the world. Well, until the
Right.
Netflix bill comes in and you have to pay it yourself, and there's nobody to pick up the tab at dinner. Camellia,
Yes.
I got to run. My next guest is coming up here in just a few minutes. Is there anything else you want to share real quick, plug before we let you go?
Nope. I would just say, ladies, take a step back, and it's okay to be vulnerable, because I'm here to tell you, like, sometimes, I was just thinking the other day, like, I'm just tired. Like, no desire to be like, I have to do all of this career stuff on my own. I know that, there's women out there who feel the same way, and you got to do what you got to do, and you should be capable of that. But it's okay to say that it sucks sometimes.
Yeah, well, they just stop saying it on TikTok with tears in your eyes, because it makes
Yes.
me just feel
Well,
less.
yes, absolutely.
Okay, Camellia, thanks so much for that. We look forward to seeing you on Thursday, okay?
Have a great day, everyone.
All right, have a great day.
Common. First and foremost, until a few months ago, we were both employed by the Kansas City Chiefs. I cheered you on for 6 years straight. And with that, I would assume we went to the same PR training. But since all of that obviously left your fucking brain when you went to go give that speech, I thought I'd be a good coworker. Share my notes. Let's get started. These are fucking vague. Biggest takeaway is you now represent a $1 billion organization. You are no longer just Harrison Butker. You are now Harrison Butker, who plays for the Kansas City Chiefs. And anything you say or do that doesn't align with that brand, scissoring just like the lesbians you hated in that video, will be grounds for termination.
Former Kansas City Chiefs cheerleader takes Harrison Butker to task, or so she thinks. Let's hear from Devin Erickson on this topic. He wrote a lot about it. Weaponized against everyone in the first place. We're going to talk about that Kansas City Chiefs star who gave a Catholic speech at a Catholic college. It made perfect sense to me. We'll talk about that when we get back on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Expanse of time, a year might seem like a mere moment, but oh, what a year it's been. In September 2022, Austin and Stephanie Peterson embarked on a journey to wake up America. They began humbly, with just 20 souls tuning in, learning, listening, and though challenges arose, like the looming shadow of YouTube demonetization, their spirit never waned. And now, thanks to you, thousands rise with the sun to join them, to listen, to engage, to be a part of a community. So here's to you, and to Wake Up America, for memories shared, for friends made, for the journey ahead, and for never, ever forgetting to rise and freedom. Happy anniversary.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message. Believe me, Austin Peterson is the best. He's got the greatest Wake Up America show I've ever seen. Whenever I tune in the mornings and watch the live stream, let me tell you, he has got the absolute best content. I love his guests. It's just a total blast to watch, and I highly endorse and recommend the Wake Up America show. It's terrific, believe me.
Is the outdoor your home about as exciting as a library? Then spice it up and unbore your space with our custom metal signs. Crafted with love and a bit of libertarian magic, you can customize your own metal sign at ap4libertyshop.com. So head to ap4libertyshop.com, customize your own metal sign today.
Welcome to a world of vocal discovery at Peterson Voice Studio. I'm Justin Peterson, here to guide your musical journey. Envision a place where your voice reaches new heights, where every note tells a story. We embrace all singers, from the enthusiastic shower vocalists to aspiring stars, ensuring each voice finds its unique rhythm and tone. Are you ready to elevate your voice? Visit petersonvoicestudio.com and sign up for remote lessons tailored just for you. Let's begin this melodious journey together.
Tired of spending your hard-earned money on woke corporations that don't share your pro-freedom values? Fed up with sipping liberal lattes and progressive cappuccinos? Introducing Founding Flavors from AP for Liberty Shop. Get your day started with Washington's Revolutionary Roast. As robust and principled as the man himself, this blend is the shot of energy heard round the world. Or maybe you want to taste the fervor of freedom with Adams's Patriotic Perk. It's as dynamic and balanced as the U.S. Constitution, sure to awaken your spirit of liberty. For the aficionados, we've got the Jeffersonian Java, a complex mix of flavors that speaks volumes about your refined tastes. And don't forget Betsy's Liberty Lullaby, our decaf option, crafted with the same care and dedication Betsy Ross put into our Star-Spangled Banner. This blend lets you enjoy the taste of freedom anytime without losing sleep. No woke beans here, folks. Just pure, patriotic, pro-freedom flavors brewed with love for liberty. So why compromise your principles for a cup of coffee? Stand up for your values, perk up your patriotism, and start your day the American way. Get your Founding Flavors at apforlibertyshop.com. Welcome back to the Wake Up America show. I'm Austin Peterson. Thankful to have you here. Let's rise in freedom. Let's have some fun and fight for economic freedom and personal liberty. It's what we're all about here. If you're enjoying the content today, click that like button. If it's your first time here watching the Wake Up America show, click the follow button so that you can join us for our regular schedule. Every Monday through Friday from 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time, the Wake Up America show streams live, and we're a motley crew. We have a lot of fun. So drop a comment over in the Rumble comments section and introduce yourself. We'd love to make friends and have you be a regular guest here with us for our regular schedule. All right. Well, I played the clip of that Kansas City Chiefs cheerleader who's upset at Harrison Butker, who is a Catholic football player for the Kansas City Chiefs. He gave a Catholic speech at a Catholic college for their commencement speech, and boy, the left just could not stand him standing up for Catholic values. Now, listen, I'm not religious, so some of the things I agreed with him on, some of the things I didn't, but he's got free speech, and I certainly don't freak out over things like one of the most important things you'll do in your life is to be a mother. I mean, how is that controversial? Like furthering the human species? A man who takes a look at the human species through the lens of science fiction, my next guest, Devin Erickson, is up for a major award for his libertarian science fiction book. He'll share with us a little bit more about that later. Devin Erickson, his second time here on the Wake Up America show, joining us live. Good morning, Devin, and welcome back to the program.
Well, good morning, and thank you for having me on. Had great fun last time.
Yeah, Devin, well, we're thankful that you'll get up early and join us and be generous with your time. You wrote a lengthy piece reacting to what was just a stupid video, it seemed like, of this Kansas City Chiefs cheerleader, I guess former cheerleader, and she was putting on the HR lady fake glasses. She felt very comfortable taking Harrison Butker to task for his comments that he gave at the speech. So break it down for us, Devin. I'll give you the floor, and why did you have such a lengthy takeaway from that simple little video?
Okay, well, I love it when people are stupid. I love it when people are stupid online, because what they're doing is really not too important. I mean, some washed up ex-cheerleader makes a video in TikTok. That's not really important at all, but it gives us an opportunity to have this little window into human nature. And, what's going on here is that when people are aggressive like this, especially women in her position, this is fear. This is fear and resentment speaking. So, She was a cheerleader, and then if you look at the video, she's obviously not in a position. I mean, she's still sort of attractive, but she's obviously not in a position to be a professional hot girl anymore. So she's lost her power. Specifically, she's lost the power that women like to wield, which is soft power. You know, men like hard power, which is like the ability to lift a lot of weight or to go out and a skill where they can go out and do something, or having a lot of money, or, you know, something they can achieve themselves and wield personally. Women like soft power. Soft power is other people doing things on your behalf, ideally without you having to even ask for it. This makes women feel cared about. And, you know, it's considering the way they evolved, where they had to get along with a community of pre-human hominids, it kind of makes sense. If the other women in the tribe don't like you, you're probably not going to do too well. If the men in the tribe won't do things for you, you're probably not going to do too well. So this is someone who's used to having soft power. She's lost it. And now she's engaging in a fantasy of wielding it again by sicking HR on an NFL player who is paid a lot of money for his hard power. I mean, you know, we may not consider the ability to kick a sports ball too significant, but a lot of people care about it. So it becomes important.
You say that for her, this is a revenge fantasy. What do you mean?
Yeah. Well, it's revenge on the universe at large. You know, it's not like she's mad at Harrison specifically. She's mad at the universe. She has this childlike way of looking at the universe where all the universe is one vast other, one connected machine whose function it is to interact with her. And so when any part of it wrongs her, or takes away what she used to have, or makes her uncomfortable, she really is willing to lash out at any other part. You know, it's like it's all one big machine, and I'm going to rage against the machine as if I were 14 years old again. And, you know, this is like, look at me wielding power. This is basically, if you watch that video with the sound off, because you can always tell the sociopaths when you watch them with the sound off, and then you watch it with the sound on, this is kindergarten. This is, my daddy is going to beat you up.
Devin, talk to us now about the way that the NFL handled this, not just the cheerleader, but on one hand, you have NFL players with multiple babies from different women, you have wife beaters, and they don't get the same level of inquiry into their behavior that Harrison Butker is getting. The examination on him is intense, white hot on his words and his statements and his beliefs. So for not being a degenerate, he's being punished. Can you talk a little bit about that juxtaposition?
Well, it's all about the money. It's all about the income, and wife beaters and people who run dogfights and people who use or sell drugs or any kind of sort of antisocial behavior is not a threat to the institution. So, you know, it's the NFL has not, and other institutions in society have not supported these Karens because they believe in their values. You know, these types are useful to weaponize against people who threaten the institutional continuity, the institutional power, and the institutional income. So the fact that a lot of people are outraged is really what they are going after him for. You know, nobody in any actual position of leadership or financial power cares what he said. They care that people are mad about it.
If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, I'm speaking to Devin Erickson. He's a science fiction author, and he does public commentary on his X account. He talked about this story. We're talking about the story of Harrison Butker, still, for some reason, his largely uncontroversial comments that he gave last year. He gave a similar speech last year in Georgia, but for some reason now everyone is inflamed by these same comments that he gave at this commencement speech this year. Maybe you can talk about that in a moment. But I'm really interested to hear your take when you were analyzing the situation of the NFL cheerleader, former NFL cheerleader, who was quote unquote taking him to task. You say that the guys who aren't as valuable can be made examples of. That's what Longhouse culture is for. It isn't driven by Karen. Corporate and state bureaucrats have weaponized Karen into a tool for intimidating working white men who create most of the value in the economy. What do you mean? What is Longhouse culture for? Can you define that to us and then explain?
Longhouse culture in particular, and this term longhouse is something somebody on Twitter came up with to describe this sort of collective HR scolding type culture. You know, really what it doesn't have to be that. It could be anything. It doesn't have to be, oh, you're not allowed to say anything that upsets a woman. It could just as easily be, you have to have a picture of Lenin in your office. It could just as easily be, you have to come early for the company group prayer to Jesus. What's important is that they have something to weaponize against troublemakers or people who make them uncomfortable or anybody who needs to be made an example of. The point is heads on spikes. It doesn't really matter whose head it is or why it was put on a spike. When you're in the business of sort of farming people's labor in order to make money, you want them divided and you want them intimidated. You want them worried about whether they're going to lose their job, and you want them fighting with each other about stupid, petty bullshit, like whether it's socially acceptable to praise motherhood or not. Because what you don't want them doing is talking to each other and telling each other what their salaries are and comparing notes and saying, hey, next time we're going to bargain with corporate, maybe we should talk to each other first. Maybe we should gather some market knowledge. Maybe we should even all be in the room together so that this becomes a group negotiation. They don't want that. They want people divided. They want people ignorant of their market value, because every market interaction is a negotiation. And in every negotiation, the person who knows less about the market is going to come out with the short end of the stick. So you really, in a certain sense, you kind of want the poor people or the working class fighting each other so that they don't unite in order to bargain collectively with you.
Devin, do you think that a large part of the outrage at Harrison Butker is due to his identity? He does seem to fit the epitome of the Chad meme online, the white, bearded alpha male saying that women should be happy to be mothers and that will be the greatest thing that they do in their lives. And that's what he recommends. I mean, it is largely due to his identity, which is fascinating because, boy, the people who hate us the most, they sure do love having our children, don't they?
Yeah. Well, when he says that, it fills a lot of women with fear because they've been placed in this untenable position where they're damned if they do and they're damned if they don't. Women tend to align themselves to existing power structures, and they want to be popular. So if alpha male Chad says the highest thing they can achieve is motherhood, and, they know viscerally, biologically, that motherhood is pretty important. Whether it's the highest good or not, I don't know. It's certainly necessary. It's certainly an important thing that only women can do. If he says that, and at the same time you have an establishment saying that women who are mothers are just baby machines. They're just sort of auto wombs who just sort of spread their legs and don't do anything, as if, shaping the mind of a young human being was totally unnecessary and unimportant. But if you have a lot of voices saying this, then women are placed in this position where they either have to feel criticized and rejected by Alpha Chad, or by this cluster of voices that constitutes the Longhouse. So they've been placed in this completely uncomfortable position. Women do not like to have to choose who to offend. They really, really, really want everyone to love them. And they experience criticism a lot like men experience threats or physical force. So they're trying to eliminate this pain point. I feel criticized. Over here, it's a lot of people criticizing me if I choose to have children and focus on raising them. And over here, it's one or two guys, admittedly, one or two guys with really high social status, saying, oh, having children is one of the highest achievements you can have, and you should be proud of it. These two things are incompatible. So it's like, it feels like it's easier to shut up one or two guys than it is to shut up the collective of twittering voices. So they're just trying to eliminate these mixed messages about what they should do, because they don't really have the tendency that men do to be able to really develop a very strong philosophy, stick to it, say, fuck you, I'm not going to do what you say, and be comfortable with that. It's the last part that's very difficult for women, is being comfortable with that. They can do it, but it's painful.
Devin, your solution at the end of this, the remedy to the attempted longhousing of people like Harrison Butker, or people like ourselves who engage in wrongthink. We engage in wrongthink here 5 days a week. Is that we have to stand together. But here's how you describe it, and I wonder how you would explain this. You say, so if they are firing people for being racist and sexist and anti-gay, the solution is for everyone to start being racist and sexist and anti-gay together. And if the races and the sexes and the gays don't like that, they should have a look in the mirror and ask why they allowed themselves to be weaponized against everyone else in the first place. So, I mean, I don't want to be a Nazi.
Well,
I don't want to be, hating on gays or be a racist. So,
sure, but
explain that, Devin.
Don't allow the people who weaponized accusations of racism to define racism. Don't allow people who weaponized accusations of sexism to define sexism. So, they hold up this image of fascists genociding everybody, and they say, if you're racist, then basically you're that. And then they define racism. Well, in the past, everyone was racist. in the real sense of the word racism, meaning that you have a preference for your own race rather than other races. You know, everyone was sexist in the real sense of the word sexist, where it means that you notice that men and women are different, and therefore you have to treat them differently. So, you know, this was weaponized against us. You know, everyone who is normal and thinks straight, because it represented an opportunity. It represented a hack on classical liberal society, because there was a moment. There was this golden moment in American history.
Was it in the 90s?
Around
1990?
maybe the late 70s and early 80s, where we really were this close to achieving a colorblind society. We were almost there. We were almost there. But the problem was that the majority of people, the white people, the European descended people, became non-racist a little faster than everyone else. They were pushed a little harder to be non-racist than everyone else. In fact, a lot harder. And so a lot of people discovered that, hey, if the white people stop being racist while I'm still racist because I'm not being called out for it, then I can use that to my advantage. And so there was immense financial and social incentives to create this world, to push for this world where the white people are colorblind and everybody else is racist in the sense that they prefer their own race, is racist in the sense that they favor members of their own race. And what's happening now is that white people have noticed this. And they're like, okay, well, you know, if I'm the only one who's supposed to put down my same race preference and everybody else is still maintaining theirs, that's going to go badly for me because I am the least preferred person in this society. I am preferred by no one. All the other races are preferred by someone. They have a posse. I don't. They have allies. I don't. So the only sensible thing to do, and this is not about what I want or what you want or what anybody wants or what the world that we would like to see is, it's simply a matter of self-preservation. In the future, we're going to go back to a society where everyone is racist.
Devin Erickson, he's a science fiction author. His book, Theft of Fire, is currently a finalist for the Libertarian Futurist Society's Prometheus Award for Best Novel. He was competing against Salman Rushdie, but Salman was not selected as a finalist. So Devin can say forever his debut novel beat Salman Rushdie in a literary contest. Congratulations, Devin. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners or plug about your book before we let you go today?
Well, you can find more of my political rants on Twitter, where I take apart the causes of various things. And the book, Theft of Fire, it's the first of a quadrilogy, is available wherever books are sold. It's written in the vein of classic science fiction. It's not preachy. It's just a good story. And if you like that sort of thing, check it out.
Here we go. Theft of Fire, sold at many fine bookstores. Congratulations and good luck on the contest. If you end up winning that one, we'll definitely want to have you back to celebrate on that one, Devin. So congratulations.
Yes,
congratulations on your novel. And thank you very much for sharing your insights with us publicly, especially on x.com. It's a great follow and I highly recommend it. Have a wonderful day. That's Devin Erickson. I want to say we give him a round of applause. I think he did a great job. Before you leave today, you know what to do. Exit through the grift job. Look at that American Chad right now. That racist, that sexist, that misogynist.
No, God, please, no.
Looks just like Harrison Butker. Wearing his American flag shorts. Let me ask you a question, guys. Would you wear these shorts? Would you wear these American flag shorts walking around your neighborhood like that? Well, then I guess that means that you're just horrible, racist. American flag, how dare you? Look at him being all white and muscly. See, he works out, which is another sign of white supremacy. You know what I'm saying? Get these American flag shorts over at the Grift Shop, ap4libertyshop.com. That's AP, the number 4, ap4libertyshop.com. And while you're there, get yourself some patriotic coffee as well. Founding Flavors coffee, available at ap4libertyshop.com, or maybe a Call the Cops, I don't give a you-know-what shirt available. Again, exclusively designed by me. That's right, AP. I designed these, me and my wife actually together. She designed the beautiful stained glass Founding Fathers collection. If you're a patriotic American, there's no better place than ap4libertyshop.com. That's AP, the number. Look at this. 4 people have this in their cart right now. Oh boy, nice. Hope we can sell some. Check it out. Go through the Grift Shop, guys. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you again here tomorrow on the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com. Bye, guys.
Wake Up America show, we continue our theme of looking at times libertarianism has been tried throughout history. Let's consider the case of Godord, the medieval Icelandic government. Medieval Icelandic government, known as Viking Iceland, was often seen as a nascent democracy. It was a free state without centralized authority, kings, or a tiered class system, promoting a community-driven approach to governance. At the heart of this system was the Althing, an assembly where laws were made and disputes settled. This gathering was foundational to Icelandic governance and set it apart from other European systems. The settlers from Scandinavia introduced a unique political structure, avoiding the concentration of power and allowing for the mobility of allegiances among leaders, known as chieftains. Chieftains, or Godar, owed their status to their followers and their ability to mediate disputes, not to territorial control. They played a crucial role, but were not rulers in the traditional sense. The economy was basic, focused on self-sufficient farming, without the influence of towns or trade centers that might encourage a feudal system. Social structure was horizontal. Even farmers could become chieftains if they gained enough respect and followers, emphasizing the fluidity and equality within the society. Legal disputes and community decisions were often handled at local assemblies, which could escalate to the Althing if needed, showing the sophistication of their legal framework. Despite its egalitarian underpinnings, the society was not without its issues. Disputes could turn violent, reflecting the sagas that depict feuds and conflicts, illustrating the challenges of a stateless society. Snorri Sturluson, a 13th century Icelandic historian, suggested that tyranny in Norway led to the settlement of Iceland. Settlers sought to escape the overreach of kings like Harald Fairhair, who imposed harsh taxes and authority. The settlers established a society where power was not inherited or centralized but shared among leaders who were judged by their merits and the consent of the governed. The Althing was not just a legislative body but a symbol of collective governance. It was held at Thingvellir, a physical and symbolic center of Icelandic law and culture. Leadership roles like the law speaker were about service, not power, as these individuals recited laws from memory but wielded no executive power. Judicial reforms in the 960s introduced the quarter courts in a more structured legal system, although fundamentally the society remained decentralized. Courts were open to public participation, emphasizing a transparent and community-focused legal process. However, achieving justice often depended on the ability to gather support. The system encouraged negotiations and settlements over conflict, with provisions for arbitration and compromise, reflecting a community-oriented approach to law and order. By avoiding the pitfalls of feudalism and the accumulation of power, Iceland's medieval society prioritized the welfare and autonomy of its people over the ambitions of its leaders. This unique form of governance, characterized by its emphasis on communal values and shared authority, serves as a historical example of alternative political structures. The legacy of Viking Iceland continues to intrigue historians and political theorists, offering insights into the functioning of a society built on consensus and mutual respect, rather than hierarchy and domination.